r/AskReddit by Reddit. What did your parents/family do that you later realized was insane? They kept everything. Everything. The moment I walked into my friend's house and realized you're not supposed to have stuff lining the walls was ridiculous. This is why I have to smoke when I go to visit my parents. It's my mom who's the hoarder, but I think dad gave up on her a long time ago and realized it was just easier to let her live in her fantasy while she destroyed the house. I love them both dearly, but I enter that building and I want to scream. It makes me viscerally, absurdly, uncomfortably angry. It's so hard because intellectually I know it's a mental illness. It's not something she can help or acknowledge is an issue or even see, really, the same way folks outside her head can. But JFC. There's this really good book called Stuff, Compulsive Hoarding and the Meaning of Things, which at least helped me understand her better, but I honestly don't know if I'll ever reach a point where I can forgive her for it. Which is pretty ducked up, I guess, given that I know it's an addictive process born out of emotional trauma. Still, though, I also have a horrible reaction to even the memory of my mother's hoarding and having to clean it all when she passed away. Now sometimes one of my friends will be like, I've got these old clothes/books/whatever, do you? And I scream no and run the hell the other way. My mom once blew out the pilot lights on our gas stove, cranked up the gas, and told 7Y/O me and my 14Y/O sister to go to sleep. I went to bed, not knowing any better. Luckily, my sister dragged me out of the house, and we sat in the car. Mom finally changed her mind, sobered up a bit, aired out the house, relit the pilots, and took us back inside. That was fun. My mom was always very invested in our romantic lives, partly because that was an area where we didn't stack up well as compared to our cousins. The most insane manifestation of this was when I agreed to go out on a date with a guy, only to find out before the date that he was a sexual predator who'd been fired/arrested after he preyed on 4 separate freshmen at the school where he taught. Mom flipped out trying to convince me not to cancel the date. He might have grown out of it. You don't know if you don't give him a chance. Thankfully, my dad was on my side and I cancelled the date. But mom sulked the entire rest of the night and demanded I log her into my Facebook account so she could scroll through my friends list so that she could see which of my male friends were straight and single so that she could push me towards them instead. Your mother is scary. No restrictions on food or drinks. From the time I was 4 or 5 I was drinking around 5 cans of Dr. Pepper a day. My parents never told me I needed to drink water and real juice was never in the house. Juice when I was little was Hawaiian punch or the 5% juice Minute Maid fruit punch. Lunches during the summer was a continuous cycle of pizza rolls, SpaghettiOs and McDonald's. Breakfast was either chocolate Pop-Tarts or Fruity Pebbles cereal. I don't think junk food now and then is too much, but I don't think I had a single day in my childhood where I wasn't given sweets, fatty snacks and caffeine. The funny thing is, as a kid I used to think it was my friends' parents who were the odd, mean ones for only letting their kids have things like sodas on rare occasions. Looking back I speculate that along with just being lazy parenting, it was also probably my parents' way of trying to make me happy and make up for the lack of time spent with me by buying me whatever junk food I wanted. My brother while raising his boys would buy like 10 gallons of milk at a time when it was on sale and then put it in the deep freezer. It never tasted like milk after it thawed. He claimed to not have noticed a difference. Oh, there's a difference, alright. Edit. I had no idea that this gross taste would be eliminated or rectified, I guess, by shaking the milk. Man, I bet my nephews wish they would have known that, lol. We lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere, at least 35 minutes to the nearest grocery store. I'm not sure how it started because I was a kid, but anytime our puppy dog howled, we would all howl. To the point that it was a deafening sound and would kind of make your ears rattle. His name was Duke. I would occasionally howl first because then he would follow, and then so would my mother, father, and 2 older brothers. I thought it was awesome, and it felt invigorating to do. I now realize this is odd. That dog probably had the time of his life, though. My parents visited underground Atlanta back in the early 90s. Not the safest place. Anyways, my brother was a baby and crawled under a bench they were sitting on. He pulled out an umbrella bag with a very sinister knife inside. My parents don't report the knife or anything, but instead keep it, and it becomes a staple knife in our kitchen. So yay, pretty sure my parents used a murder weapon to cut the crust off our PB&JS. I go to Georgia State and am right by this area every single day lol. This story is so absurd, but I can imagine this scenario completely. My dad fell victim to many money scams in the early 2000s. He would always say he's sitting on a gold mine, and I thought we were gonna be rich. Yeah right, don't think he's learned his lesson. I still catch him replying to bullcrap emails. My godbrother's parents used to lock us in his room for hours to days at a time. His little brothers learned to pee in the trash can instead of in the floor when we couldn't get them out. We eventually learned how to unlock and relock the hatch from inside the room so that the four of us could get out for pee breaks and for snacks when we were feeling really bowsy. I didn't realize how abnormal this was until I was watching a news story in the work break room with a bunch of coworkers about a neglected child being removed from an unfit home. My initial response was that's nothing. As I launched into what I just wrote above, I looked around waiting for everyone else's stories, but instead they all just stared at me. Edit. Quite a few people have been very kind and offered sound advice to me. Therapy is definitely worth its weight in gold. Edit 2. People keep asking, godbrother is the son of one of your godparent, or so I was taught when I was growing up. I have a brother with disabilities. He's relatively low functioning and requires regular attention, both inside the home and out. I love him to death, but it made for a pretty untraditional childhood. I didn't realize until my late teenage years that other families were happy and relaxed, which isn't to say that they didn't have their problems. Just that they weren't constantly preoccupied by one family member who requires more care and attention than others at all times. To be clear, my brother is a wonderful person. I cherish every moment that I get to spend with him now. But, at the same time, I spent a disproportionate amount of my childhood in waiting rooms while he went to various therapies. And I spent very little time with my parents growing up because all of their attention was focused on my brother. I was an afterthought because I was lucky enough to be an afterthought and still function. My alcoholic bipolar father would drop me and my two siblings off at the grocery store with his credit card and told us to go grocery shopping. We were young kids when this started. He'd either go hit up a bar or wait in the parking lot before coming back to get us. Sometimes it would be a long wait. Looking back, I still don't know how we were able to run his credit card and no one ever batted an eye. We had to cook too, so it wasn't exactly healthy stuff. A lot of times the food would all be gone a week or so before he'd take us back to the store. We had to get really creative. We'd joke that there was nothing left but the goo in the back of the refrigerator. Honestly surprised we didn't develop diabetes, although I'm hypoglycemic, or obesity or anything serious. We quickly learned not to buy a bunch of candy or sweets, something that kind of impressed me looking back. I learned to keep an emergency stash of food hidden in my room. One of many insane things, but first that came to mind. His credit score was either amazing or awful. My dad once took 3 of us kids out for a ride in the Pine Barrens. He drove us 20 minutes into the woods on a sandy trail in a minivan. He had just gotten into a fight with my stepmother and needed a drive to burn off all the alcohol in his system. He didn't say much during the ride. We got stuck, obviously because we were in a 2WD caravan, but luckily some 4WD truck dude came through and winched us out. When that guy showed up, dad wasn't quiet anymore and we left the woods when we were unstuck and went home. I'm not sure what his intentions were that day, but the look on my stepmother's face when we returned made me rethink whether it was a fun ride in the woods or a duck this life moment worthy of the nightly news narrowly averted. Edit. Thank you for my first silvers. To answer a few questions, my father's been dead for 7 years, so we don't talk much anymore. It wasn't unusual for him to go out for a ride after a drunk fight, but it was the only time he took some of his kids with him. I'm guessing that's what had my stepmother so upset. As a young kid with a drunk for a dad, I never really thought about him purposely killing us. He was an angry drunk, but mostly verbal abuse. At that point I had never been off-roading in the woods, so I was more focused on the scenery than the purpose or possible outcome of the ride. Like a lot of things from childhood, I didn't realize some of the severities of the situation until I was much older. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comment section below.